This section, we're going to talk about more percentage problems, and at the end, we will also compare the difference between absolute changes and relative changes. So if we're looking at the first problem, it's the value of the car dropped from 7,400 to 6,800 over the last year. What percentage decrease is this? Right? So in order to find out the decrease value, you're going to do subtraction first. So when you subtract, that's the value of decreasing. So it looked like about 600 dropped. And we wanted to find out what percent this is from the whole. Whole will be the starting price. So it'll be 600 over 7,400. That gives you 0.081, which is going to be 8.1% drop or decrease, right? What about the next problem, right? Next problems, you have look like two different types of supermarket, and you have about 75 QFC supermarket, and you have 215 Albertson, and you wanted to compare the size of those two. I guess you have two different ways of comparing it. You could do 75 over, so you're basing the Albertson, right? 75 over 215, this is going to give you 0.349, which is going to be 34.9%. This means you could say QFC is 34.9% of the size of the Albertson, because your comparison is on the Albertson, right? And if you wanted to compare the store size, the Albertson store size with QFC, you write it the other way around. So it'll be 215 divided by 75. This gives you 2.867. So about 286.7%. So in this way, you could say Albertson is 186.7% of the size of the QFC. So two different ways of comparing it. Depends on which one you're going to set it as a whole. The basic ones, right? And your answer could be different. Let's looking at example 3. 3 is stock drop in value of 60% 1 week. Then increase in value the next week by 75%. Is the value higher or lower than where it started? So something like this, you can just test it, right? Let's say so this is just assuming, right? If started from $100, right? The first week, because that's 1 week, right? The first week, it will be 60% off. So it will be 100 minus 60% of 100 is 60, right? But the way that you figure that one out is just multiplying 0.6 to 100, which is 100 minus 60. That gives you 40. In the next week, second week, from the 40, you're going to add 75% of 40. So how do we figure out 75% of 40? Well, you do 40 times 0.75, right? That's going to give you 30. And it becomes $70. And they're asking if the value higher or lower than where it started. So it started from 100 and we end up getting 70, and obviously that's the lower. So even it dropped little and went up more, because you're figuring out 75% from it's already dropped, your 75% of the week started is just $30, right? So that's why the stock is lower than when it started. The next one is if a politician's supports increase from 40% of voters to 50% of voters. Describes the change. Again, I mentioned the beginning of this sections, we're going to look at the absolute increase and relative increase. We can use these examples to show that. So if I wanted to talk about the absolute increase, absolute increase is going to be what you're looking at it, right? So from the 40 to 50, the difference is going to be 10. That's going to be your absolute increase, so 10%. But we can also find the relative increase. How do we find the relative increase? Well, 40, so the increasing that you have, you're going to base that from what you started. So the difference of 40 and 50 is 10, and that's the increase you have from starting from the 40%. We call this is relative increasing, and this is going to give you about 1/4 or 25%. So with the same problems, absolute increasing and relative increasing will be the difference. Finding this 2% will be different.